as Clem has made it to the finals here to face this man starting on Equilibrium. In the top left for DKZ Gaming, he is Dark.
And in the top right side of this magnificent map, we are looking at the main base of the French kid who's been dreaming of this moment to sit on a stage like this, in front of a crowd like this, representing Team Liquid. Atlanta, make some noise for Clem. They made noise.
Yes, they did. Absolutely. Clem, fan favorite here. We all believe in the story of the, well, kind of underdog, as Clem is coming in here as his first premier finals. You wonder if the nerves get to him, but he has proven now over the years he's getting more and more comfortable advancing in these tournaments, being up against the greatest players in the world. But if you're talking about experience in this position, not many people beat Dark.
No. It really is experience versus momentum, and that is just one hell of a clash. I do think it helped Clem that he played in a few other big events this year. The Katowice, again, didn't really go out. I mean, he kind of came into Katowice as one of the favorites for the entire event, or at least a dangerous outsider, right? And what Oliveira ended up doing is what a lot of people thought Clem would be capable of doing, but then in a much less surprising manner, because we've seen the kid be fantastic online. But then, of course, we were in Saudi Arabia a couple of months ago, and I think that was an amazing tournament for Clem, making it out of that round robin, well, not really round robin, Swiss format group stage, and then obviously that big quarterfinals victory. In the end, he didn't go all the way as he got stopped by his Italian buddy Rainer back then, but these are the moments where you tank so much confidence and also experience as a Frenchman, where you're like, all right, I don't just have to be that online hero. People can finally stop talking about me only winning online. I just made top 4 in one of the biggest events of the year. After that, you go to a Home Story Cup, you make it to your second Home Story Cup final ever. Yep. You lose against Serral, no big deal. So yes, Dark has the historic experience, but throughout this year, Clem is no stranger to having a couple of proper offline runs.
It really has been the year of Clem performing better and better in the offline tournaments. He was the online hero, the regional winner back-to-back on previous years, but had not been able to perform up to that standard on the offline format, where Dark is pretty consistent no matter where he finds himself. Plenty of finishes in the international tournaments as well. We do have Clem playing a very safe opener with an SCV Scout, as he is going for a typical opener for him. Hardly can call it greedy nowadays. 3cc without that second gas.
Yeah. And Dark, even though this is that map with the mega base, where we don't just have the rich Vespian guys, but you have the gold minerals to go alongside with it as well. It's the first time in StarCraft 2 history that we have one base in a competitive 1v1 map that has both of those things working for you. We saw Serral take it immediately right off the get-go, walking a bunch of roaches and ravages to the other side of the map. It didn't end the game, but it's safe to say that Serral got himself in a very fine position with the amount of damage that he dealt. Dark has a much more normal setup for now. That doesn't mean that he's not going to take that base as his 4th or his 5th base. Clem obviously knows it, but I think just to shake off some of the nerves, some of the jitters that Clem may have been feeling, it is nice for him that he's going up against a somewhat familiar and normal start.
Yeah, as far as that goes, doing an SCV Scout actually makes a lot of sense. Sometimes that can also be, obviously, if you do believe your opponent's cheesy, that's where you would do that. But then also can be something that players don't want to do, because it is a couple extra minerals, right? So if they're really facing someone that they're equal with, or they think is even better than them, it can actually be something that they skip. But they do it, they really want to be safe, they really want to play their game, then that's what the setup they get is. And Clem is set up 3cc, Hellions on the way, Liberator as well from the 1-1-1 follow-up. Very standard opener that gives you some map control as well as some harassment. Dark has added on a Roachborn, however. Yeah. 5 roaches are on the way. It's something that the Hellions and the Reaper would love to scout.
It's probably just going to be the 5 roaches, right? Well, okay, he's going to make 4 more immediately, make it 9. You can always just make 9 roaches and still drone up behind this with 2 extra overlords on the production tab. This is a very large map, so it seems unlikely that Dark is going to make 9 slow roaches, then reinforce with Zerglings, run them to the other side of the map and get the job done, as he does fire up the lair there. That makes a little more sense. I guess Dark is just truly respecting the potential of these Hellions of Clem and still run a couple to the other side of the map as well. And Clem has barely missed it so far, but he does spot this one, and he's about to run into the other 4 that were already into the center. Dark definitely smashing that drone button behind all of this, but this is where Clem can maybe get a bit of value out of his Liberator, as they're going for queens at first. 1 queen is going to fall, but the Liberator also falls, and I don't really hate that for Dark.
Yeah, no, I actually think this is a fine performance so far. The Roaches do bully back someone who is only going to be making Hellions for a while. Obviously, the Liberator wouldn't want to pull back to handle this either. And so the Roaches do have to be respected. It's not the largest number, but you don't have the best fighting units for the Terran against it.
Nope, we do have 2 Cyclones popping out, and obviously we know that Dark has been droning up behind this. So Clem is going to be forced to micro here a little bit. Dark is going to try to save those low HP Roaches and morph a couple of them into Ravages, but it's so hard to actually go through this choke point. There is a bunker that Clem can fall back to as well. I don't think the Dark can really do a whole lot here. Obviously, he doesn't want to lose all the units for nothing. Clem is really getting a lot of value out of these Cyclones that are still pretty healthy. 1 Cyclone finally low on HP, but in the end, the Clemperer cleans this up without losing a single STV, I believe. And that can't possibly be something that Dark's very happy with.
No, I don't think so. But then I also looked at Dark's income and his overall bank. He went up to 1,000 bank at one point on the minerals. The gas wasn't actually set up terribly evenly. It looks like he was hoping for more from the aggression, yes. But then also, I guess, hoping that his bank would be a little more even, as he does add on a Spire after the Roach play. This is no doubt going to be a surprise, especially considering that he does not have Link speed.
Yeah, that's what I was double checking there as well. I'm like, so we're going Roaches into Spire. We see a double Evolution Chamber being dropped as well, but that's just a little bit bizarre. It almost makes you wonder, is he going to build some Corruptors to deal with Metavacs and try to reduce the healing? Because Roaches...
Oh, no.
He's going to drop a Baneling Nest as well. Did Dark forget that he does not have circling speed?
I think that he did. Absolutely, but he's still not realizing it. Even as the Lings are on patrol in the front of his base, they do not have those little wings on them. This is going to get awkward real fast. Dark will, of course, eventually get everything together to go for a defense and go, hey, those Lings are pretty slow, and then start up speed. But the question is, how necessary are speedlings going to be for these early defenses? Usually quite a bit. When your intention isn't to get Ling, Baneling, and maybe Mutas, that Spire is still a question mark.
Yep, and don't forget that Clem is obviously going to get his 1-1 upgrades online in the near future. Combat Shield is finishing up as well. We're going to have a double drop, so they're going to have to defend this with the Roaches that are going to be down in upgrades. There's a couple of drones are already falling. Clem is here in the main base as he's battling the Queens. The Cyclones and the Hellions were doing their thing. Clem has picked up multiple Queens. We now have a few Mutalisk on the production tab, but this is just the oddest game to me, Zombie Grub.
Yeah.
You're looking at Mutalisk and the Roaches, and neither of those units is particularly fantastic against Thin Bio.
No, it is not, as the direct engagement will eventually come. The Roaches will be outgunned. The quality gets better for the Terran. And then the Lings sometimes help out with some nice surrounds, but they still doesn't have Ling speed. Finally, Dark notices as he also grabs his Bane speed, but Clem has gotten into the rhythm. He's going for the drop. He's now targeting that +1 evolution on the for the attack, and I think that might go down. It could absolutely go down if he wanted it, but he thinks he can get more, maybe.
Dark is just in all sorts of trouble. Even the supply still looks somewhat promising for him, having this amount of lost mining time. We do have the Mutalisk on the other side of the map, and Clem obviously a bit surprised by them, but everything that he's gone up so far, he's probably like, Mutas? Really? No? It's like, yeah, apparently that's going to be a thing. So 7 STVs do end up falling immediately. Left a couple of Marines in the natural. I mean, this is somewhat promising for Dark, but he needs so much more because it's going to take a very long time before Dark will ever have Hive, Adrenal Glands, sexier upgrades. Even though that Evo Chamber, by the way, in the end did not get picked off, and I kind of feel that Clem should have probably targeted that down. But even with that minor missed opportunity, I'm still kind of feeling this game for Clem on a very favorite Zerg map.
I feel like the structure is there for the Terran and not so much for the Zerg, but that's actually kind of Dark, to be honest. Whether it's because he takes damage in the earlier mid-game or because he sometimes makes these mistakes, he somehow, some way, still manages to make everything get back on the rails, and it's totally fine. The train reaches its destination. Dark is excellent at that, and that's exactly what he's trying to do here. Get to a comfortable position for the Zerg, find a nice free tank, that's always great, but Clem is attacking to the south side, getting his 2 tanks that are alive into a very nice position.
Also love that Clem is leaving a couple of Marines behind already, making it hard for Dark to go on top of these tanks. Dark is still going to try to go for it. There aren't too many Banelings in the mix, and a couple of them get picked off immediately. So Clem can now just kite back a little bit, and he's going to try to gun down as many Zerg units as possible. The majority of the Banelings have fallen. Overall, not the worst fight for Dark, as Dark does get on top of these tanks rather quickly, and he is going to successfully push Clem back for now.
Successfully push him back, that's very true, but Clem's not really going to stop with the aggression. He come through effectively is on 4 bases as the Planetary finishes up at the gold. He's going to have 2-2 finish up in about 25 seconds, and he's producing double tanks as well. Dark has opted for actually one of his classic playstyles, which is to include the Corruptors as far as that mid-game goes. He was certainly one of the ones doing it for a while, then stopped, and I guess he wants to bring him back.
Yep, the Mula Link Corruptor, and obviously we have a bunch of Ravagers in the mix as well. He is going to drop the infestation bit about 10 minutes and 20 seconds into the game. That is very late for modern ZVT standards if you want to play Hive Tech altogether. Dark is maxed out, has a bit of money in the bank, and is going to try to make some magic happen here, but especially off-grid is going to be hard, but Clem is not paying attention there for a split second, and Corrosive Balls connecting with Marines. That's probably the only time we're going to see that throughout the entire best of 7.
Probably, maybe a bit of both of them still getting warmed up despite their epic semifinals. More Corrosive Biles actually successfully targeting the Terran units, but Clem now trying to micro his little heart out. 4 tanks are anchoring this push. Make that still 4, actually. A 5th one had reinforced at the exact right time, and Clem is going to continue battling this as long as he can.
Dark's army is bigger, but Clem's army feels so much more powerful, and this has a lot more micro potential overall. It has a lot more momentum behind it. Like, Dark is going to need to pull off some of these miraculous engagements that we know that he's capable of. He needs to sneak Banelings behind the Terran army, because if we're just going to roll everything in from the left side, it is probably not going to be good enough. Does kind of come in from 2 angles here. He is going to get on top of a couple of these tanks.
Yeah, the tanks tried their best to take down the Banelings before they went down, but some Banelings left over means the Bio's got to respect it. More reinforcements coming in for Clem, however, is going to turn the tide, and now it's Dark's turn to slap down some Corrosive Biles just to, I think, buy the space. He does not want to be chased down with these very expensive units, but Clem desperately wants to actually grab a few to say that he was comfortable with that trade. He has lost his positioning, though. Dark, at the end of the day, taking actually a fair resource trade when it comes to ZVT.
Yep, I mean, for the Lairtech army, I think Dark actually took some pretty good fights there. Maybe Clem moved a couple of the buy units a little bit too far forward, as Clem is now actually pulling a classic, as we like to call it, the Beyond, where he only started armor. But right when we mentioned that he's going to fire up +3 attack immediately as well, Dark at least has successfully made it into Hive Tech, and he can start working on some of these amazing Hive Tech upgrades that Zerg can get access to, like Adrenal Glands for all the Zerglings he's producing. So far, so good for Dark. I think he survived a couple of very scary minutes in this game, but obviously it's still going to take a little while before he can ever get Clem out of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're still approaching a late game ZVT, which Dark has expressed frustration with, even though he's extremely good with it. And we just saw Clem perform great miracles even in late game TVZ. He is on the defense, however, as Dark is looking to charge in to the 3rd base. Corrosive Biles coming down on those tanks, taking him out, but the Banelings are coming in single file so far. More are going to be necessary. The Marines have got to shoot him down, and they will. Dark is going to be forced to flee.
That is that Claymore TVZ magic, where every single Baneling just gets picked off before it even connects with a single Marine. And at the same time, we had that bit of picture-in-picture action in the bottom left side. Clem sniping a few drones, getting a cancel on that hatchery as well. That truly was not the fight for Dark. Maybe some of those fights in the center of the map gave him some overconfidence, because I'm not exactly sure why we even went for it, right? You finally have Hive, you can make your army a whole lot more powerful, and Dark's like, nah, this is the moment I'm going to run into all these tanks. I guess he expected Clem to just have way less than Clem actually had.
I think that's exactly what it was, or hope that they were out of position, perhaps doing too many drops at once that didn't lead to success, or having them guard different bases. But no, Clem was prepared and is kind of happy with how that went down. Lots of it off of creep, obviously. He also was able to get that hatchery, was looking for more with the drop. Won't find too much, but these players continue to expand, continue to develop their upgrades, and continue solidifying themselves into the late game. The problem for the Zerg is that they usually would be at supply max and a bit of a bank if they would really have their preferential TVZ.
Yep, and Dark had to spend all of his money to get close to remaxing, but he's not there yet. And he fire up all the expensive +3 upgrades as well. And that Adrenal Glands is about to come online. We're even looking at +2 flyer attack, so I guess it is going to be hard for Clem to keep these medevacs alive, but it's going to be so difficult for that very Ling-heavy army to get great engagements against Clem off creep, especially now that Drilling Claws is about to finish up, and Clem is most likely going to sprinkle the map with a whole bunch of Widow Mines, and that makes even Rum Buys just very difficult to execute.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of Widow Mines plus Planetary with perhaps the building upgrades too means that Clem is going to be relatively safe on his bases. Dark will have to make quite a bit to it. He does take care of this north side attack, and things will calm down, at least for a hot second. But Clem's adding on Ghost, adding on a Fusion Core. He's still actually ramping up the aggression on the north side. Even though this isn't his entire army, he's actually keeping a bunch of it at the Xel'Naga, as if he's hoping Dark will get overly aggressive on that angle. However, that's not where Dark was planning to be aggressive. It's this planetary that's going to go down. Clem just acknowledges he was in no place to stop that from happening. Let it go and focus up on the attack, but can these Banelings find more damage?
Yeah, the Baneling count isn't that high anymore, but it's high enough to connect with a bunch of STVs, and I believe another Commencement. They got picked up there by the Zerglings. So Dark definitely finding some success here, but we have to ask ourselves that age-old caster question: at what cost, Dark? As he now 40 supply down, your army is not going to get any better. He also had access to the gold a bit quicker, which means that that base is going to dry up soon. Like, Dark is going to have a harder and harder time to remax, and especially if he wants to take a fight on the other side of the map, he needs to be maxed out to even have a chance, because throughout that entire best of 5 that Clem played against Serral, Clem very rarely grabbed all of his units. He left a lot of Liberators behind, protecting certain bases. He leaves tanks behind everywhere, leaves a couple of buy units at home to gun down Nidus attempts. Like, if we can't even beat half of the army, how are we going to beat the entire army? Oh my goodness!
Lots of explosions going down there. Dark is going to back away as he is building a greater spire. I'm thinking about his ability to get to a very resource-efficient trade type of composition. Usually that would start with the Infestors. We saw it in the last semifinal, but we also saw it in Dark versus Cure semifinal too. Infestors can be a great way to catch some of these aggressive Terrans, but Dark doesn't want to add that on. He wants to try and get to Brood Lords. If this map does continue to go and Clem doesn't find great momentum, it can become more like a 6 o'clock for 6 o'clock situation. Broodlords would be great, but can you survive to that point?
I think Clem didn't even intend to be this aggressive, right? He probably expected, all right, the entire map is going to be purple, I'm just going to have to hang in there for dear life, but a lot of these fights and these harassment opportunities just presented themselves, and Clem's like, all right, we'll keep on taking them, as he's now pressuring this base in the bottom left side, keeps that tank alive, as well as a couple of those +2 Corruptors do come in to work on these medevacs, but Dark is just in serious trouble. He's having a hard time fighting on Trip, so I have no idea what he's supposed to do on the other side of the map, where Clem has all those planetaries and those defensive units that he keeps on leaving behind.
And every time Dark over-aggresses, he retreats, and then the snipes come down, so that is a big problem. Mostly Ling Bane, though, coming in as the Ghosts do split to mitigate the damage, but they did get overly aggressive. Clem thought he had a moment there. That was not necessarily true. Dark will push this back, at least to the halfway point of the map, but Clem is always there with more reinforcements. It feels like at the very least he's not going to let Dark intrude on his side of the map over that 50% point, and he's going to be the one that keeps on aggressing.
We do have a +3 flyer attacks on the way now, as I think the Great Aspire has finished up, so a couple of those Corruptors could potentially morph into Broodlords, but how would you like the Broodlords right now, Zombie Grub?
Right now, I think it's a little premature. As I was saying, I think if you do start to condense down to your last few bases, the last minerals, the last gas, then you want the most cost-efficient army, and a slow army can be okay at that point too. But right now, Clem still has some mobility, even on a map that does encourage that 50-50 split map scenario. So like I said, I feel like Infestors are the way to go first as far as making these resource trades a little bit better. And then maybe if it goes to a 25-minute game, that's when you get the Broodlords.
Burrow did come online, so maybe we can get some magic going with the Burrowed Banelings, but it's very difficult on this map because it's not that obvious where Clem is coming from. Maybe you can put it at one of these hallways on the top side or one of the bridges, as the Widowmine connection just continue to be big. Dark does push Clem back again, and I gotta give it to Dark for his ability to hang in the game where honestly he's been in under a severe amount of pressure, and he's been in serious trouble for quite some time. Has taken a couple of excellent fights that allow him to still dream, but dreaming and surviving is not quite the same thing as killing a Terran on the other side of the map near their planetaries.
This is what Dark does best, as I was saying in the early game, but it's also what I was kind of mentioning in his semifinal versus Cure, you know? He did get into a weird position in that very first game and then still was able to bring it back despite some big losses, and then obviously won the entire semifinal eventually. So, I mean, it's not the ideal place for anyone to be, but if there's someone who can find more comfort in a place like this, still draw out a game and potentially even win it, it's Dark.
Let's see, as we have a Corruptus getting on top of a couple of these Liberators. Dark showing us that he's definitely dialed in and he's on top of these Libs rather quickly. One more is going to turn around and get a few more shots off on these drones. Dark now on 75 workers. I would say that's actually okay with the amount of bases that he can mine from. This is not really a moment anymore where he needs like 85 or even 90 drones, as he has the vast majority of his upgrades. And a lot of these mineral lines are simply mined out.
Yeah, there's actually not that much mining to do. He is going to have to defend the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock against pushes from the Terran that bounce off a planetary.
Wow.
Certainly in the 6 o'clock position, that is the exact case here. We do finally have some sharp festers walking around. Clem's been excellent ever since this series. Game 2, I would say, versus Cyril. He's always been scanning anytime that Zerg starts to take a fight, but he has missed a couple of infestors on the backside of his army.
My wow had to do with the 161 Zerglings that Dark currently has out on the map, but it's so hard to find great spies when you're that heavy on the Lings. Lings are great for running around the Terran army, but running into a well-sieged up Terran is often very difficult. And a lot of these Lings have already melted without a real fight even taking place, as Clem is still finding some economic damage on the top side of the map as well. Clem is the one who's starting to accumulate a little bit of a bank while being maxed out, and Dark is spending every single penny that he has, but everywhere he goes, there are Widow Mines connecting with his army.
He is trying to find a situation where Clem isn't prepared to defend, but it looks like with it, he realizes just how far gone it is. Clem is going to take game number 1 after 21 minutes. But it was possibly one of the most awkward games Dark could have played for a first in a best of 7.
Yep, but a massive win obviously for Clem here in this best of 7, because Equilibrium, that's supposed to be the almost free win map for the Zergs in best of 5s or in best of 7s, as some things have changed in the veto process over the years. So there are 2 maps that are very good for Zerg, Ratuset and Equilibrium. You're kind of supposed to win this, it's your home ground, right? Obviously not the end of the world yet for Dark, but not the way that I think he wants to start his grand finals, and Clem is probably wondering like what actually just happened. He didn't just win Zombie Grub. I kind of feel like he was cruising to a win.
It was one of those games where even though it went on for so long, and that's a testament to how Dark still is very, very good, it was very Clem-sided the entire time. More questionable decisions from Dark, or of course mistakes from him, all starting with the lack of speed. You know, I think I could see absolutely a plan in which it works out better if he has speed from the get-go, and then everything kind of just gels a little bit better too, but it started off so awkward for him.
And even towards the end of the game, it still got a bit awkward, because Dark was not that rich, because he had to spend all of his pennies just to keep Clem away from his important bases, but he's investing in a Great Aspire. We've got +3 flyer attacks, but the only thing we really ever got done with it is make a couple of Corruptors that were nice to deal with some of the Lib harass, were nice to gun down a couple of those Medevacs in the center, but that's not normally stuff we see out of Dark. If Dark makes the Great Aspire, it has a purpose. We see Broodlords. Never got to see them.
Nope, never found the right opportunity. Perhaps he will find it in future games. For game number 2, we are going to spawn on Hecate. In the bottom left for DKZ Gaming, he is the Red Zerg, Dark.
In the top right side, we are looking at the main base of the Frenchman, who has now won 4 games in a row on that stage, and he's starting to feel more than at home. Give it up for Team Liquid's Clem.
Another large map to work with, but very different positions on the map compared to Equilibrium. And Clem, he's been very good about looking out for potential weirdness from Dark. Dark doesn't want to do anything weird. Another hatch first from him to the gas pool, and then for Clem, if he can get away with it, his comfort zone has always been that 3cc.
Yep, he loves it. What's going to be very interesting is if we're going to see a more of a normal start and things are just kind of unfolding the way we expect things to unfold between these two, is how aggressive is Clem willing to be in the mid-game? In a game where not a whole lot has happened yet, where the situations and the cards are relatively even and fair, because in the past what often happened, I think back of some of the Neo-Humanity games that these two had against each other at big events like IEM Katowice, so we're not talking about the minor online cups where it's 4 AM for one of them, but no, big moments moment, both of them traveling to Poland. Clem gets himself in good positions, but he just unsieges the tanks a bit too often and is too aggressive in situations where Dark wants nothing more than Clem to attack him. And obviously, if you give Dark an opportunity to punish you, he is going to capitalize on it. And I wonder if Clem has learned from those moments in the past.
That's a very good point. That actually just brought back the memory of it. But, you know, we think about the history of these two players. Most recently, Clem has been winning more. It's not in those premier tournaments, though. But overall, I do feel like Dark used to get him all the time, online, offline, no matter what. It was something that Clem would be great in TVZ against, let's say, a typical European Zerg that he faces. But then he would really struggle against Dark, perhaps the style of play, perhaps because, you know, there's Roach emphasis, for instance, compared to others, or whatever it is, right? So he would struggle against Dark while having an insane win record against everyone else, and then that flipped at some point this year. Now Clem dominates Dark in a lot of these online tournaments, seems to be more comfortable being both aggressive against Dark, but then also being patient and defensive against Dark.
Watching Clem's Reaper Micro, by the way, is always fun, right? He's been on the edge of dying multiple times throughout the last 4 games, but he's always there. If he can get one more shot off, if he can get that 1 second delay on a hatchery going down, he is going to go for it. And this really just once more screams confidence that Clem has built up throughout this weekend. Where in the past, in some of these big games, big moments where he knew that all the lights were on him, he'd play a bit more cautious and he wouldn't show us that flashy micro that we know that the kid is capable of, as we've seen it time and time again when he's playing from the comfort of his own home. But today, so far, he is on point. And it almost feels like he's having a bit of fun as well, right? The unnecessary clicks almost, where we're not dancing the Reaper to town, but Clem knows there's nothing to do here, but he still loves it. He's in the face, and if you're Dark, you're just like, all right, I get it, mate. Yes, you're dialed in. I'm going to step it up as well.
I was looking for that creep tumor especially, but Dark was also counter-microing in the, you know, less, I guess, evident way, right? Where he's trying to determine where the Reaper's going so he can plant the creep tumor on the opposite side. Now he has the 2 that a Zerg would want. Clem has changed his build-up just the slightest little bit. It's still 3CC and the Hellions and a Starport. It's a Viking first, not a Liberator.
Nope. I mean, that Lib was obviously the least successful thing that Clem did in that previous game. He went for the queens. In the end, he did get 1 queen, but obviously a Zerg player like Dark has a lot of queens to begin with, so sacrificing 1 queen to kill a Liberator that's more expensive and then won't annoy you anymore is a trade that I think Dark will take any day of the week. It's one of these moments where Clem will maybe look back at it. He's like, yeah, I should have just right-clicked on the drones, because Dark was actually somewhat stubborn and he didn't even pull the drones away. And with the amount of time that the Liberator fired, which was like 4 or 5, maybe Clem would have been able to get a slightly better trade there, but that's honestly one of the very few things that could have gone better for Clem in game 1.
Yeah, exactly. He handled the roaches on his side of the map in excellent fashion at a bunker. He had the Cyclones pop in really good time, and then he controlled it from then on, especially because Dark was making some mistakes, and including that late metabolic boost. He finally gets it this time, though. Totally normal timing, also not going for any roach shenanigans. Layers being added on, trying to unsupply block himself as well. 5 Overlords on the way, and then Baneling this. So Ling Baneling at the very least. Dark has shown more Muta and Spire builds, I feel like, in the last 24 hours than he has in a lot of other games, but it is maybe not the option for Hecate. I did like it on Radicet, and I think it could have been cool on Equilibrium, but not sure about the other maps.
No, it's going to be hard. I think Clem is excellent against this playstyle. I think Clem historically has loved this the most. When Clem made first a big name for himself, and that is when he started beating the likes of Sero and Raynor, and he did it often when they were playing a lot of Peter Lingbane, as the Aliens are going to go for the adventurous strike, and the drones are lining up over here as the Liberator has pushed them away, and Clem gets 10 drones in the best part of it, Zombie Grub. He gets out of there with the vast majority of the Hellions. Clem off to a magnificent start in game 2 as well.
He does finally get surrounded to turn things around at least a little bit for Dark, but he already made the mistake. He already had those drones pulled into the Hellions and is going to have to recover them first and foremost. Unless he can get a counterattack in to take advantage of the lack of army on the field, Clem's still going to be okay with that trade. He's really, okay. All right, that Hellion is going to live.
Really though?
Is it though?
It became personal between Dark and the Hellion. Dark really wants it. Dark gets it in the end. Yeah, I mean, in the end, at least Dark can feel somewhat decent about it because, hey, I did get the surround on a lot of these Hellions that honestly could have escaped. They were already at the ramp.
Yeah.
And if Clem would have just brought them back to his side of the map. I think the majority of them would have survived that. In the end, maybe Clem got a bit overeager, where he's like, wow, I'm doing so great, can I do even better? And you know, that's kind of where his journey stopped. But hey, that's still the stuff that you're looking for. You get a great scout off. You slow down the creep spread a little bit. That's obviously what the Hellions and Reapers are for. And if you can then get 10+ drones relatively early in the game as well, you got to be feeling pretty good about yourself if you're Clem.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if for Clem's standard, losing the Hellions is not what he wants. But as far as when you think about the actual trade worth, I think it was okay. He is usually using the Hellions to either defend a Baneling or Ling run by, or using for a secondary attack. He doesn't have them now, so the Banelings do make major connections. 15 SCVs go down in the blink of an eye, and certainly Dark is happy about that.
Man, that's amazing by Dark, how quickly he realizes that that opportunity may be there. Seeing that Clem is going to attack him with 2 medevacs, has picked up the majority of his units that could fire. He's not waiting for Baneling speed, he's not waiting for anything else. He just knows at that point, I've killed the Hellions, I've killed the Reaper. I know that you picked up a bunch of units to fly to my side of the map. I'm going with what a lot of people would say, the anti-timing, the slow Banelings. It doesn't matter, because slow Banelings are still terrifying, especially if you're focusing what's happening on my side of the map. So that was great for Dark, but that's also something he absolutely needed.
Yeah, I think so, but at the end of the day, it was the repercussion of losing those Hellions. 100%, yeah. We've been seeing the Terrans get a lot better about being mindful of those earlier attacks too, especially as they pick up their 16 Marines, but not that time around. Clem just loses all of the SCVs to the third. Very nice for Dark there, who's also starting to control the drops a little bit. Clem's got to show up that Baneling Snipe micro as he heads back into the main base. He's got double drops on the left and a drop on the right to try and pull Dark apart. Dark does have the army, but it needs to be in the right place. Right now, he is once again having a larva issue, so his bank is a little too high here.
Yep, floating a little too much. When we're playing against Clem, you don't want to be floating 1,200 minerals. That could have been an extra queen or two. That could have been some spore crawlers on the edge, just to make it a little bit harder. And on top of that, it could have been a lot more lings and a couple of banelings as well, with that 600 gas that he was sitting on. I mean, Clem is firing at almost all cylinders. I guess the only thing that Clem did not do is start up +2 armor. He does have double E-base, so that's a little bit of an oversight on the Clem. And we have a big Fungo connecting, and now it's Dark who says, all right, it's my time to shine. Massive victory there for Dark.
Yeah, we looked away, but, you know, I don't think Clem was actually looking at that ramp at all. The Infestors were patiently waiting there for like something exactly like that. I think we would have expected Clem to realize and back away. Nope, fell right into, I'm not even sure trap is the right word. Dark was kind of chilling there. And now we have a 5th base getting set up at the same time as a 6th here for Dark, and a double expand while especially he has this room to do so. He's got some creeps right in the middle of the map and is starting to work on it on the opposite ends of the map, left and right. Clem also trying to get an expansion up to the top left, has chosen the bottom right to focus on for this push. That is where the creep spread is still lacking.
I think the next 2 minutes are going to be terrifying for Dark. If Dark can hang in there and he makes the 2-minute 11 in this game, or he can get a couple of ultras out, he might be fine, he might be cooking. But the Widow Mines have drilling claws. The Bio's about to get +2 attack as the Sharking Infestor reveals itself, lands a Fungal, but it's not quite good enough because we are very Ling heavy, and the Widow Mine shot from downtown kills the vast majority of the Lings. I mean, the first beginnings of these 2 minutes that are very scary for Dark are not off to a very good start. The Widow Mines could go once more for the Vipers or the Zerglings. I mean, everything that Clem is touching at the moment is turning into gold, and Dark is in serious trouble.
He is absolutely in trouble. He might have some technology, but he can't get everything together to really use it in a great fashion. Losing some Overlords over here as well. The hot pickup will happen. Could be going over to Dark's would-be 6th, but not looking at it right now. Dropping the main base, finding a defenseless drone line. 8 of them are going to go down, and the medevac once again is going to be able to escape. Clem even still has these Widow Mines popping off, and while they don't get tremendous hits, it is still the annoyance that Clem is working off of. He's got the supply, he's got the macro, he's got the upgrades, he's going to have the technology, as I believe his Ghost Academy just finished, and Dark is once again just the Zerg who's catching up.
Dark is down to 4 queens, so even a medevac with 10 HP is annoying because the queens are just not always in the right position. He is lacking the anti-air. If you lack anti-air, Clem is going to keep on bouncing between all these bases. Our first ultras are out, but it's honestly going to take a little while before these ultras are terrifying. This is a good run by Dark, but I think Clem is not going to fall for it. Clem will probably keep on pushing. 21 SCVs that quick, and a Fungo on the other side of the map is starting to look a little bit more promising for Dark, but this Terran army is still here. Banelings, though, finding way more successful connections than they did before.
That fungal was great, but nothing to handle the Liberator makes this extremely awkward. Just 5 or 6 units from the Terran being a bother on the ground. The Ling run by finally stopped at the Planetary, but it's still hovering around looking for the reinforcements. At the end of the day, the supplies still remain somewhat even, but Dark might have just bitten off a little more than he could chew. No medevac to heal this up. They stem back to the Planetary. They will eventually defend. Clem also dipping down in supply. He did lose access to his third, at least temporarily. He did lose a lot of drones, and he was just completely pushed back. Something finally came around to deal with that Liberator. Dark gives himself much needed breathing room.
Yep, he needed that because now he's going to get some more Ultras. Now he's going to enjoy the benefit of Kindness plating as well, which means that Marines alone are not all that terrifying anymore. Widowmites, however, are still terrifying, and there are plenty of them. The second one was not quite able to fire, as Clem is going to be temporarily forced to lift up this orbital one more time. I mean, a 10 out of 10 counterattack there by Dark, because if Dark just stays on his side of the map, fights that army straight up, there's honestly nothing he could really do there. Clem's army was better, it was way more set up. Counterattacking was, I think, the only real option Dark had. And I mean, one hell of a counterattack it was. Gets the depots, gets all the SCVs, and lives to fight another day.
Exactly. Dark giving himself a fighting chance in game number 2 of this best of 7, trying to reestablish the base at the top left, but he's at the bottom right. I mean, that actually, I feel, should have gone or down to something on the drops earlier on, but it does have the ability to mine once his Liberator's taken care of, and that is, once again, a nuisance when you don't have dependable, good old Corruptors on the scene, so that has probably gotten even a couple of those Queens, but Dark is back on the aggressive. He's back on Clem's side of the map, hoping that he's finding him, not looking the right way. This time, though, Clem, with very little units committed to Dark's side, he is totally prepared on all 4 bases to defend.
Dark is realizing that these Liberators are a problem, not just when they're getting on top of his mineral lines, but obviously if he takes a potentially good fight in the center of the map or on Clem's side of the map, he needs something to successfully gun them down. And I think that's why he's dropping the Spire. So we're going to see a few Corruptors once more. All of these units that Dark are making, though, are pretty expensive, and he's really not that rich. There is a Widowmine that is left behind. Gets a pretty good shot off on the vast majority of these Banelings. Link surrounding the Marauder is obviously nice, as more Widowmines are firing in the center of the map. I mean, Dark truly trying to embrace the chaos over here, hoping all hell breaks loose, and that's where the Zerglings can shine, but I don't really think it is all hell. It's annoying what's happening here for Clem, but I think overall Clem still has a pretty good overview of what he needs to focus on.
He might be getting more and more uncomfortable not getting on Dark's side of the map, though. His Liberators are finally cleaned up. He's not had an actual push into even the middle of the map in some time, yet he's not completely turtled up. It's not like he's behind a bunch of command centers ready to defend. This is where things can get screwier. The Lings will find more infiltration points. The Infestors will position themselves into better spots for the Shark attack, and Dark, again, has that breathing room to build up a little bit of a bank, which he really could not do on Equilibrium, so that's finally happening. Plus 3 carapace is now done for Dark as Clem's attack finished, but he forgot his armor.
Yeah, it's funny. They both kind of forgot one upgrade. I mean, at one point Dark was just kind of broke, so we can't even really say that Dark forgot it. Maybe he just couldn't afford it. Clem obviously had some resources in the bank, would have been able to fire out a while ago. Also starts off from cluster shells, as the Widowmines do blow up 1 or 2 Marauders, but a lot of additional Lings getting blown up in the process. The final few Queens that Dark was working with are here. Those are the only 2 Queens Dark has.
Well, that could be a problem in the future. I mean, it seems like he has enough hatcheries now to work with max out. Yeah, he's got plenty of larvae, but could be a problem in the future. Once again, Dark choosing to go for the attack as he is finally on the defensive back at home, but it looks like instead of being on the defensive, he's letting some bases go. He's committed quite a lot of army to the attack, so Clem now has to come back to defend his production line if these units on the high ground can't do it, and I don't believe they can. A little bit awkward here as they both go for, well, basically a base trade. Nice fungal from Dark's one aggressive investor with the perfectly timed Banelings as well. Dark has cracked Clem's main base, is on top of his production, and Dark now just needs to clean up these Marauders in his natural.
Yep, Clem still obviously having a pretty big army on the other side of the map. Clem still has Widowmines all over the map as well, and that's going to be annoying. Dark needs to make sure that he doesn't lose these overstayers. Getting on top of the Terran production is nice. We see Banelings rolling into the Terran army in a picture-in-picture in the bottom right side. Both players losing a lot of workers, a lot of buildings on fire. Eventually, Clem should be able to run to a planetary, but I'm surprised to see all of these buildings die, Zombie Grub. up. The orbital in the natural as well. Clem could have lifted up a lot of these buildings. He's just not doing it.
No, he's not. He was so focused on the attack, and honestly, I feel like he's been kind of disappointed a lot of this game. He's been watching his camera, now he seems to be kind of smiling at the possibility of having a tap out in this game, because it really does seem like he is too far gone. He's lost all of his production. He's going to lose, well, not those SCVs, but probably more economy at the end of the day. And it's also just Dark with 50 more army supply, 20 more workers, on top of planetaries, on top of the production that just got replaced. Clem's supply blocks can't even use it, and now his planetary is going to fall. This is going to be it. Dark's got game for 2.
The Swarm is here in all its glory, and Dark with a couple of devastating counterattacks earlier in the game to stay alive, and later on with a way to just find a path to victory. Gotta give massive kudos to Dark for that game too, because there are very few Zerg players who will find a way to win games like this against Clem, who's off to a good start, who knows what's happening, who's just ahead. I mean, Dark and the good old counterattack. Kudos, man. That really is, I think, a lot of experience showing over the years that those were the correct calls. I feel like even if I had Fog of War turned off, those were hard calls to make. Yeah. Dark somehow made them, and well, it paid off in a very big way.
Yeah, he got what he needed at any time. The run-bys, the fungals, especially hitting, almost all of them were great, actually. And then the run-by to end it all that actually broke into the main base. But as I said towards the end of that game, it actually kind of felt like Clem was overall disappointed, you know, when he loses the Hellions, when he loses the drops, when he does get majorly fungled. Those were moments that I think he had avoided in a lot of his last best of 5, actually. So even though overall there was a majority of that game where Clem was still in charge, he was able to accept those losses, he was, I think, mostly disappointed in it, and it kind of started to really crumble with that, and of course alongside Dark's ability to recover games in such a fashion.
Yep, maybe Clem thinking that the game was going worse than what it actually went, but maybe, I have a hard time imagining that, because he was obviously there when he gunned down all of those links. He was there when he picked up those drones, and honestly, he didn't take that much damage in the beginning. It's only the first counterattack, and even just going over that game, at one point Dark is losing a fight on his own side of the map while he's down 20 supply. In CVT, that's unheard of. That's when people tell you that you're supposed to leave the game. Well, not Dark. He is going to hang in there and turn things around. We've got a finals on our hands, Zombie Grub. Nobody wants the 4-0.
That's very true, actually. And Dark is just getting a little bit better and better as well. The first game was a little awkward on his start. He still made it a 21-minute game. Second game, again, some awkwardness as far as losing the drones, obviously, being on the back foot, losing a hatchery, and then he gets the fungals, he gets those perfect run-bys, and he's back in it tied up to 1-1 as we are going to head into Game 3 on Golden Aura.
Yep, Golden Aura. How do we like Golden Aura and CVT, Zombie Grubby?
I like it perfectly fine. I mean, actually, I have no strong opinions on this map, to be honest. Do you?
I've heard Terran map. But
well, every map's a Terran.
yeah, that's what a lot of the Terrans indeed say. So, or at least that's what a lot of the Zergs like to say. Dark obviously had map choice here, because we started off on Equilibrium, then Clem picked Hecate. So it's kind of fun how they both win on the away ground, so to speak. We're all tied up. The best of 7 turns into a best of 5. Dark's going to be feeling really good about the ending, at least, of Game 2 and finding a way to bring that one home. So maybe momentum shifting a little bit in his favor. What he's going to feel less good about, though, is the positions that he keeps on finding himself in. Yeah. 8, 9, 10 minutes into these games. Like, Dark knows that he cannot keep getting away with that he's going to have to step it up in the early game if he wants to bring home the ESL Master Winter Championships.
At the end of the day, I feel like they both saw opportunities to play a far better game for Game 2. Again, Clem could have saved a lot of the units they ended up sacrificing, could have avoided more fungals. And then for Dark, he could have had, well, no drones lost to those Hellions, for instance, and he could have gotten maybe even faster run-bys. But hard to ask for more, actually. It really was the Hellions that set him off in the beginning, and then with the Baneling run-by, with the fungals, with the just perfect run timing from Dark. I mean, he did bring it back. It just didn't start off the greatest. So we're not quite seeing both players, I feel like, at 100%. You get a 3CC, I get my 4 hatcheries up, and we just duke it out. And it's so, so, so close. But we're getting closer to that, and Golden Aura could be our battleground, our best battleground yet. As you can see, one of the players has taken a little break, so we are just filling some time, and Dark seems very pensive.
Up a little over a year ago, he was sitting on a stage similar to this one in the grand finals of the DreamHack Masters, Valencia as we called it back then. And had also a Terran sitting on the other side of his stage. Got the best of Maru, the same Maru that looked invincible in the matchup earlier that day when he went up against a couple of the European Zergs back then. I mean, Dark has just always kind of found a way to make his way into finals and sometimes bulldoze through finals as well. It's been an amazing, honestly, it's a pleasure to follow him over the last 10 years. He's been here, done that, it's been around the block. We often talk about the great content pieces we've seen around Dark over the years, especially the Signature series bring back some very warm memories. I mean, I feel like Dark is everyone's favorite villain. I know we call him a villain, but he is not really a villain. He's awesome, he's a sweetheart, he's a little cheeky, but we love him for it.
Yeah, exactly. I think he does tend to, he opts into a little bit of the story sometimes, right? Like he'll say something because he knows it's a little expected of him, and then sometimes you can tell that he's, not really wanted to, and he starts talking about how much he does respect his opponent, and how much he does like the foreign scene and all that. But then there's also certainly a heavy sprinkling of him actually just being super confident in himself. So absolutely, when he says, get a game, don't get 4-0'd in the little pre-hype thing there, right? That might have been him being a little cheeky, but then when he actually rates himself as first, I think he might, totally believe it. He's very confident.
And hey, he's in the finals, so who's going to tell him that he was wrong doing it? Not me, that's for sure. We have loaded into Game 3. Golden Aura is going to be our battleground. In the top left side, we are looking at the main base of one of the best Zerg players in the very rich history of StarCraft 2. Give it up for Dragon Kaiser Gaming's Dark.
In the bottom right of Golden Aura, we do have our blue Terran for Team Liquid. He is Clem.
The moment Clem has been dreaming of for all these years, ever since he bursted onto the scene in 2018 we started to hear of it, but it took a little while. It wasn't the same trajectory as that other 16-year-old back then, Raynor had. Raynor turned 16 and was immediately one of the best players in the world. Clem turned 16 and we're like, oh, that's so awesome, we got a new good Terran player in Europe. But it really took a solid 2 years before Clem didn't just show up to be a top 32 or top 16 player in some of these tournaments. No, all of a sudden Clem became a very serious contender. Started taking maps, started taking series of the very best players that Europe had to offer. And obviously, especially in the online area, that's where Clem truly ascended to a whole new height. Won a lot of the biggest online events we had. But the only thing he's really just wanting to do is lift a trophy at a big offline event. And the kid is close, but he's not there yet.
Not quite there. We do see Dark checking around with a drone, wanting to be wary of a potential proxy as he is going into a gasless third hatch. I believe he did something like this versus Spirit in their match and ended up going into a very, very fast hive. We've been kind of noting, later ones, certainly even very late for some of the meta of ZVT in this series. Might be changing it up here if you can get away with it, and that's kind of the presumption is that you will, because Clem, well, is going to be very aggressive in the mid game when he's got his 16 Marines, so sure, but he almost always does opt for the 3CC.
I mean, gasless by Dark, gasless 3 bases. Also funny to even hear you mention the word proxy, because I'm like, yeah, that's the thing, I forgot about that. Proxy 2-Rex, proxy T-Rex, but whenever Clem plays, you just very, very, very rarely see Clem go for that. I feel like Clem only ever does it if he's just not really in the mood to play video games anymore. If it's just too late, if he's been playing for too many hours, he's like, all right, let's just go ahead and get it over with. Clem is not much of a proxy barracks enjoyer. What he does like is proxying different tech facilities. Every Protoss player on the European ladder is familiar with that, and a lot of the Terrans will also be familiar with a proxy Rex. Could be a good old Hellion drop here. Yeah,
it could be. Proxy Starport could be coming down here, and same idea as you would see usually in TVP. I think someone is hoping for proxies, actually. But it is still effective versus Zerg. Obviously, the angle of attack can be very disorienting for the Zerg, who's expecting no proxies of this technology. The lack of speed, in particular, on this map is going to make the defense of the Hellions excruciating.
This is actually kind of scary for Dark. Now, you don't want to hype this up too much before it actually happens, right? Because we've been in past. There is nothing that the Zerg can do, and then someone like Dark just pulls off the most magical defense with Queens only and a couple of slow Zerglings, somehow block the Hellions. But in theory, on paper, I am incredibly concerned for Dark, but it's not a it's not a medevac.
Yeah.
It's actually going to be the Liberator. So we have a couple of Hellions going into Cyclones. Man, that's obviously something that Clem can't possibly know. But a 4 Hellion opening here with a medevac, would have been an amazing start for Clem.
Yeah, exactly. He at the very least would have been able to bully around the drones. They wouldn't be mining, and they probably would be dying. But no, with especially the Cyclones also make an appearance on the production tab, you do want to lean more towards the Liberator, as Cyclones don't really get added in the medevac drop super well. What they do is they add in with the Hellions, and speed or no speed, they can combine together to be a kind of fearsome early game harassment force, and then the Liberator shows up so much faster. So Dark might be expecting a little bit of aggression on the front, eventually a little bit of aggression in his main, but not particularly this fast. And then you add in that Clem micro. This is really scary. Even if Dark initially defends the first push, it's going to be consistent. And the Roaches coming out, well, actually could be a way to stop making this consistent. They'll help out on the front line, but they might also threaten a counterattack.
We are aiming high. This is brought to you by the US Air Force, one of the partners that makes this event possible, as Clem is going to get a couple of Hellions on top of drones, and 6 drones have already died. The Liberator is doing its thing, and the Hellions are not quite done yet. Cyclones are in the natural as well, so Clem is presenting not 1, not 2, but 3 problems to Dark, and Dark is doing his best to keep it all under control. Maybe one queen could be in a bit of trouble. Yeah, yep, that is exactly the queen that could have been in trouble, as Clem does end up losing the Liberator. 9 drones, lost mining time, 2 queens falling for a Liberator, a Reaper, and a Hellion. Don't think Clem can be unhappy with this. Still think the 4 Hellion drop would have been a whole lot better, Zombie Grub.
I do agree. He is going to continue being a nuisance. As long as he's got the Cyclones to micro, he will do so. He also does have to keep track of the size of the army. If that was 6 Roaches, but then 12 more were somewhere else initiating counterattack, and then more and more were on the way, well, it's obviously going to be a problem for someone who's actually stopped producing a lot of army units. He's added on production. He's added on his command center. He's adding on upgrades. But these Cyclones continue to rip and tear through the Roach count. Finally, it looks like Dark has settled against this harassing force, and he was doing it while building drones behind.
Okay. Not, whoa, almost on the same crypto. Not sure what that one was all about, but good micro obviously by both players there. Dark trying to save a couple of these low HP Roaches, running them to the back, and then obviously if you morph them into a Ravager, that come back with full health. Clem did a very good job in keeping those Cyclones alive for a while, trying to get max value out of it. And these little skirmishes, even though at this point it's obviously not going to decide the outcome of the game, I always feel like they are important for Clem to build that momentum that we know that he's looking for. Because if Clem starts feeling it, if he starts almost over-microing certain units, we know that he's having fun.
Yeah.
And he can kind of carry that pace into the next stage in the game where it could absolutely make the difference.
Watching a micro early game units is like imagining someone shoving coal into the engine of the train, right? Like, you know that's actually going to get burning hot. And he's going to be playing a pretty good mid game as well. It wasn't his typical 3CC situation, but he now is on one. He's building up his bio. He is going into tanks, which is quite important. He has seen nothing but Roaches thus far, and certainly Dark will be the type to go for a 1-1 Roach all in, or even just be aggressive when he sees the opportunity. So tanks are going to be your best bet against that. And then it is a question that I'm not sure Clem has answered as to whether or not it is the 1-1 attack, or it is going to be the melee upgrade, the infestation pit, and into the hive.
Yep, we obviously know that Clem, even though we saw him turtle up a little bit in some scenarios in that semifinals against Terrell, historically has been a hyper-aggressive Terran player. And in Clem's perfect world, he doesn't need to make a couple of siege tanks at all. We just go straight into the Widow Mines, we start Widow Mine dropping, we start taking fights everywhere, but it's just a little dangerous against Dark players that are as good as Dark to skip tanks completely, because if Dark then just stops at 55 drones and rallies 40 Roaches to the other side of the map, if you don't have any siege tanks, it's just game over immediately. And I think Clem has been on the wrong end of that trade-off a few too many times lately. I think because of that, he's willing to play it safe and make tanks, even though he would have rather been building Widow Mines already.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about his preparation versus Solar, and he immediately mentioned, you know, like, oh yeah, I'll probably just go right into Widow Mines, you know, and I think I'll catch like a really good mid game. But that's how you don't think about that versus Dark, I don't think. He is so prone to playing Roaches, to striking when the iron is hot with them, regardless of his intentions to all in, or yes, he will absolutely all in with them, as he did versus Cure. Now, he said that was a lot because he was starting to feel like tired, like off kilter, but it nonetheless is in his back pocket, especially in a grand best of 7, where there's going to be a lot of different choices, a lot of different games to be played out. We have Dark with Roach, Ravager, Ling, Baneling, and now the Infester's on the way as the Hive reaches the halfway point.
Yep, Dark is working on these rocks, but Clem's army's already here. I do say, though, 9 minutes into the game, I feel like I've liked this start the most by Dark. Right when you start the sentence, he is going to be forced to sacrifice one of these hatcheries. Now, a single hedge doesn't have to be the end, as Clem really wants to save that tank, is able to save it. But that also means that his bio is in a tiny bit of trouble, but those tanks on the low ground were just shelling away at that Zerg army. Also, I don't think Clem is going to be too upset over that. Saves most of the important units, gets the hatchery, and obviously took out a bunch of Zerglings.
Yeah, that would have been a lot scarier if he was just a little bit farther. Then I wonder if that surround would have been more effective for Dark, away from the tank fire, and it's a straight-up catastrophe. As it is, Clem was able to micro out with that stutter step, save all of his tanks, and fall back after a quick hit on the 4th base. For Dark, he did manage to mitigate the damage. He didn't try and save that base when he couldn't. He let it go, saved the drones, and still has the ability to get all of those upgrades on the production tab that you guys can see, as well as max out on the army. And now, from here on out, he'll have the infestors to threaten the fungal to at least buy time.
Yep, this is going to be a little bit annoying though, fighting up ramps where you're not exactly sure where those Widowmines have burrowed. Dark obviously knows that they are there. All of the tanks are here as well, but the Widowmine shots are massive. A fungal does land. Dark does have enough ravages in the end to land a couple of massive corrosive balls and take out the vast majority of these tanks. And at the same time, dealt with that 8 Marine drop that was still scary on the top side of the map.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, that's very impressive by Dark, because this is that situation where as a Zerg, you don't have that much mobile anti-air. So just 8 Marines showing up here and there while having to worry about big army fights. That is just the most infuriating thing until you have Vipers or anything else that is really good in dealing with these medevacts. But yeah, Dark survives a potential very scary situation.
It is a very good big defense there. It's still going to be a problem of multitasking and making sure you know exactly how the Terran has split, but so far so good for Dark, who even finds the Widowmines being far too aggressive. It does look like some of them nonetheless popped off, which is good news for the Terran, but that was a very awkward attempt to follow up. One little detail I also wanted to mention is that with that tank fire, he almost exclusively fired the tanks on that one infestor. You can tell that there's definitely some fear, I mean, as rightfully there should be for the fungal, but that also meant they didn't get their perfect 4 or 5 tank shot on top of their roaches. That's not going to be a problem for very much longer, as Clem has moved away from tanks into the Widowmines and into far more bio as well. And something to pay attention to, obviously, is the infestor control, the shark attacks, and whether or not Clem is always on guard against them.
Not just that, there is still an Overlord hiding behind, above the main base of Clem, and that Overlord is going to give Dark some vision into that main base to drop a Nidus. Clem had a couple of Marines popping. That's that little bit of lady luck you sometimes look for as a StarCraft 2 player, where you didn't have units in the right position, but they just pop. And I think in the end, Clem is at least going to be able to deny the first Nidus, and that's going to feel very good, because from here on out, you know, you got to worry about these Nidus networks.
Yeah, exactly. It's the warning sign, and hopefully now he'll be good to go against it. Unfortunately for Clem, he will lose both medevacs to the parasitic bomb, but he did at least get the cancel on the hatchery, so that's something, but, you know, not usually an efficient trade. Clem is behind on the overall supply. His upgrades are faster than the Zerg, but as you said earlier on, Dark really has had his best start yet for the ZVT, so his upgrades really aren't that much slower behind. He's getting into his ultras, he's getting into his Nidus room, he's getting into his rhythm, and now any attack that he does, Clem is going to have to take very seriously. He cannot be over-aggressive and open up the green light there for Dark.
And also for the first time in the series, Dark is not just maxed out, but he's maxed out with a bit of a piggy bank. And that's obviously the way that Dark likes to play his series. So he can be aggressive, he can be that swarmy Zerg, and he can just really put a serious amount of pressure on Clem and then rebuild immediately, hit Clem with some of these terrifying remaxes. And honestly, for the first time, we're going to see Dark make some real attacks. In the previous games, we often had counter-attacks. First game was a bit of a desperation move almost, where I don't think even Dark really believed in it. Here on Golden Aura, we are going to actually see aggressive Dark come into play.
Yeah, very, very fearsome Dark. And in fact, so much so, I think Clem might actually have to seriously consider playing a bit more of the turtle game, right? The very slow siege hop of your bases and your Sim City, hoping that they run too many resources into your defensive posture, which he showed greatness with against Cyril. He definitely can do it. It's just kind of recognizing that's the scenario that you're in if the Zerg really is too comfortable, I suppose. Clem is adding on the Fusion Core. He's adding on the extra command centers. He's adding on extra starports. So we are definitely leaning towards that. And Dark is going to have to figure out a way to take very resource-efficient trades as he looks to be aggressive. Dealing with some Widowmine drops as well. Always the annoyance. Ever the annoyance Clem will be. Clem is also eyeing that bottom left base with his attack.
Yeah, that's a very important one, because Golden Aura has a grand total of 14 bases. Now, often what you'll see in almost every single matchup is like, all right, you get 6 and I get 6, but what we really battle over are the bases in the bottom left and in the top right. by the current stance of it, Dark is going to be able to mine from both of them, and that's something that cannot happen on Clem's watch. Clem knows that. He's like, okay, you took a couple of minerals, that's fine, and now you're trying to take the top right as well. One of those two belongs to me, because it cannot turn into 8 against 6. As Dark is going to get an engagement, he's going to surround a couple of these ghosts as well on the high ground. Can't really chase the Terran army to the low ground though, but not a bad catch on a couple of these ghosts.
I think it was a very good catch. Clem was definitely in an awkward position. So much army on the very front trying to kill the hatchery, forced to retreat, and then the ghost kind of caught as they're reinforcing that line as opposed to actually having that steady front. And so Clem does take, I think, another not great situation, right? You really want those reaches from the Zerg off of creep against that's a very perfect late game army composition to go very well for your trade. But composition is one thing, being in position is another, and that has been a sore point for Clem in some of these battles as he once again tries to go for some drops.
Yep, Clem thinking maybe I should go ahead and prioritize the top right and just kind of harass the bottom left with a couple of these Widow Mines. There's a few Banelings. Whoa, that wasn't it. Now the drones were going to be transferred there as well. In the end, the Widow Mines fired at the Ultras, so that's not really all that exciting. Ultras are very tanky. Clem's gonna have to make up his mind as another parasitic bomb is gonna go off on this. Matter of fact, that's not quite enough, I think, to kill the Medevac, but the second one, Zombie Grub, that is going to be good enough.
100%. We do have, I believe, a third starport now on the way. Double armory being set up, triple Liberator coming in with soon to be the Lib range. No attack upgrades on them, but the armor upgrades at the very least. And most importantly, they will be able to siege up, draw the line in the sand and say, Dark, you come to me. Now, Dark's going to do everything to either avoid that or get some Vipers in there for the Abducts, maybe get the Corruptors as well as we finally have the Spire. He did make 20 plus versus Kira. That was probably a mistake, but you do absolutely need Corruptors as the game goes on to help out against a no-doubt growing Liberator count.
Not really loving Dark's maxed out army at the moment because he's got 50 plus Banelings where we don't have a single Infestor. So I feel like that's missing on an opportunity. It's obviously good to crash into a planetary fortress, and Dark is going to take out this bottom base easily. Clem says, alright, you take one of my bases, I'm going to take out one of yours. Can't forget that Dark still has 2 bases more than Clem, as he has the bottom left and the top right. That's worth keeping an eye on, but I would really love to see Dark at least have a couple of those Infestors. We know how amazing he is with the unit, and especially if we're running around with an army that has 50 plus Banelings, I feel like the Infestors are mandatory.
I do agree. I would like to see some Infestors. We got a big drop into the main base. The Vipers were there, and they will survive after slapping down a parasitic bomb to help out on the defense. That might be changing. That was very close to dying to the Cyclone lock on. Yeah. But the main base will be defended. Not too harsh there for the Zerg. One thing that I really like to see, you know, I do want those Infestors, I'm with you, but I really love the Terran here going for the Caduceus Reactor as if he did queue them up after Lib range. I do think that is a very nice upgrade as you get into these late game situations. It's not what you die for, but you're going to be stimming a lot. You're going to be wanting to add on more Liberators than you may want to be replacing those Medevacs. So helping out their regen is actually very, very good. Love to see it, as well as the upper armory kicking in with +1 ship weapons. All production tab going to Clem as Dark, I guess, was thinking of what to do next.
That's so funny. Clem working on 9 or 10 different upgrades, building a couple of units, and Dark's like, yeah, I'm maxed out. What do we do now? It's like, well, in the end, we're going to get a couple of Banelings. We are going to rebuild one of these hatcheries that we lost earlier, getting a couple of extra Overseers in the mix as well. Dark still running around with 8 Ravagers. He has lost a couple, and I kind of thought it was a bit of an odd mix, but I guess he really wanted the corrosive power ability to gun down a couple of these Liberators that are protecting certain locations of the map for Clem. That makes sense, but the Corruptors are a bit more reliable, and I do think this has been a missed opportunity, by the way, for Dark. Like, he's had that hatchery in the top right for quite some time, and in case this game goes on forever, he should have really tried to at least find a couple of minerals from the top right, as Dark is here with a lot of Banelings, and he's going to land an Abductor too as well. The corrosive power is connecting with the Liberators. Obviously this is expensive what Dark is doing here, but Dark has been a very rich boy, and then it's okay to use your Banelings to crash into situations like this.
When you find an opportunity, when the Terran's not quite prepared, they don't have the entire army there, the Libs are not siege, you do want to take it, and Dark will find some success. Eventually push back, yes, but that plus another, 4 or 5 extra ones like it, that is suddenly where the Terran is completely and utterly broken. That was not it, though. Clem does bring in the rest of his reinforcements, does have more bases to replace, does have planetaries to fall back to, and even now getting some snipes at the very tail end of the Zerg's retreat. I completely am agreeing with you as well about the top right. This could still even be mining, as Clem's command center is awkwardly hovering over it. Instead, it's not going to be that much of a nuisance. Get something over there to kill it, and then get your planetary up there too. We are getting to the point where their first 4 bases are mined out, and more of these accessory bases, the outward bases, shall I say, are becoming important. So every crack on that is going to be a little sketch. So, for instance, if Clem has to retreat here, gets his planetary cracked, then he might not be able to get that back up and running as quickly as he would hope. Dark now entering into the natural more so once again, hoping to find Clem out of position. Kind of, but that's a decent amount of army that is going to be controlled back into more and more liberation zones. The Corruptors, Parasitic Bomb, and Corrosive Bile trying to take out that massive air fleet from the Terran, but it wasn't fast enough.
I felt that Clem should have had way more, and didn't really feel like that was Clem's entire army. And he did have a few more units showing up behind command centers and stuff, but Dark clearly once more finding a bit of a gap in the defenses of Clem, where Dark had basically 200 supply of Zerg right where he wanted it, and Clem was like, oh, how many units do I need there? And slowly but steady the additional forces trickled in. So Clem will survive, and Dark did desperately need, by the way, to take a few more extractors. He had the opportunity to take plenty of them on the left side of the map. He recently added 2 more. That is much needed. He never mined gas from the bottom left where he's got that gold. Obviously never took these ones either, and he never even took the extractors at that center left side base at 9 o'clock. Dark says, I don't need gas, I just want more Zerglings. Zerglings really do it forever. If the Widowmine count goes up, if the bio numbers increase, if the Liberators are sieged up, just the Zerglings alone is not going to be good enough. And I'm just sad, Zombie Grog, because early today we saw some of the finest spellcasting that the East has to offer, with those fungals, with the parasitic bombs. Where is it?
Yeah, actually, I'm wondering that as well. Dark has sprinkled in some infestors, but hasn't really been insistent on it. And I think there have been opportunities, perhaps lulling Clem into a false sense of security in the ultimate best of 7 plan, where you don't abuse the infestors initially and abuse them later. But that joke aside, I do think that it would be great to include them. He's not found Clem as off guard as he was hoping in the subsequent attacks into that natural. In fact, the last one was 100% Clem favored. Dark should have retreated, and Clem now is able to get that top right base at the same time. Something that I thought he would struggle with when Dark is threatening this location. That's why Dark is also threatening this location. But it looks like Clem now has a really strong Liberator count with their upgrades too, and he's got his planetaries getting set up on his bases.
Yep, love watching the units lost resource step there. They are 600 resources separated after a 22-minute game. That is ridiculous, and that's obviously something that looks very promising for Dark, because we are used to seeing Zerg at least lose 3,000-4,000 more at this point, sometimes even 10,000 more against a player like Clem. Dark has been able to find great fights, but obviously Dark needs more than just finding a couple of great fights, because in the end, if Clem can take control of the top right base, it will always be 7 against 7 bases, unless Dark finds a way to get Clem out of this game on Golden Aura.
Clem is trying to once again respond to the attack rather than being in position, but this time those Widow Mines, they popped off even though they were all alone, and the army came in all together too, so it was prepared to slap down those snipes, have the Marauders on the front, and take a good engagement. We do finally have those infestors sharking around with the army though, not particularly cleverly placed, looking for the straight up fungal. They might be able to find it. Once again, it is the common zone of attack. Clem is finding himself a little underprepared there. The infestors pop out. They don't get the great fungal though, and the EMP takes away any further chances. Clem is going to be micring on the right side here, cloaks up his Ghost, is going to be looking for the split as well as the Banelands try and make some good connections. You hear those snipes going down, but the Ghosts are also starting to fall. Dark is cracking at least some of these command centers, some of the army trading, but he doesn't fully crack the Terran's bases. 3rd CC will get back up and running, 4th is fine, 5th is fine, and now 6th is fine as a planetary.
Yep, and that's the most important one. I mean, Clem obviously having that luxury to be able to run back to that planetary there towards the end. It looked promising for a while for Dark, but promising is not good enough. If this game just continues to go the way that it's currently going, Clem is going to get more and more comfortable. And Clem is like, all right, you had the bottom left, that's completely fine. Yeah, you mine that a little bit quicker with the gold minerals, but as long as I can mine from the top right, it is okay. And in the end, the Terran army should be able to find some superior trades, even though Clem has not really been able to find them yet. But that's also because Clem needs to run around, and Dark is doing a 10 out of 10 job with rotating his army left, right, center, making it hard for Clem to be in the correct position. But the deeper we go into the game, the easier it is for Clem, where it's like, all right, this is my army, this is the base that matters, and then Dark is going to have a much more difficult time to find similar fights and find similar success in some of the fights that he's been currently finding.
Absolutely correct. If this is the way the game is going to go, eventually Clem isn't going to care as much, shall we say, about perhaps more of the bottom left of the map. It's going to focus a lot on the top right. He's going to still have a bank that's, you know, remained bigger actually than Dark's when it comes to the gas. Certainly is important. And then he's going to be able to just stay there and again say, you come to me, you try and break me, which Zergs can't do unless they are so ahead on the resources income, which Dark just has not been. And now we've got some more Sharky boys looking for the start of the fights. Clem must be wary of this. He is indeed. Scan comes down, EMP as well, and Clem is getting prepared for the fight. Dark still wants to initiate, though. He still wants to go for it, despite not having those fungals, but I think that is a no-go zone, as the Viking count is incredible, and the Liberators also get sieged up. One parasitic bomb will be very effective. We got to get a split right there, but then it does not kill all the Vikings. The split eventually happens, and the snipes are still coming down.
Yep, the ghost count is high, the Viking count is high as well, as the Liberator is sieging up in the bottom left side to rain some justice from above, and Dark's honestly starting to look, I think, running out of options. Like, we need to get something magical going, but that scan by Clem on the Infestus is big. That EMP was almost as quick as the scan. I don't know how he did that, but it landed before the scan animation sound even went off, as Clem now has a couple of Marines and Marauders in the top side of the map as well. Dark does still have a crazy amount of Zerglings out on the map. Is still a maxed out Zerg, only has 200 gas, and Lings alone, Zombie Grub, I think we all know that is not going to do it, unless we have magical spellcasting. But these Widowmine shots are starting to get bigger and bigger for Clem. A while ago they lost the same amount of resources. Now Dark has already lost 3,000 resources more, and I have the feeling that that number is only going to increase.
Yeah, absolutely. Clem is well set up on his important bases with SimCity, with the planetaries that also now have both of their upgrades, even missile turrets to help out against the Vipers, Corruptors, and those Shark Infestors. So Clem is just super well set up to play this type of game. Dark has not done enough damage, has not stopped the Terran from taking these important bases, because that's usually where Golden War gets very difficult for a Terran, is taking the corner bases. It spreads them out too thin. Dark did try his best to abuse that, entering into the middle of the map, into that natural. It just never was good enough.
The funny thing is that Dark only has 47 drones left, which means that his army supply is now actually bigger than Clem's. Normally it's the Terran who has down a couple of workers, so Dark is going to go for it again. There are going to be some massive explosions though here, but often it only goes well until you run into a planetary fortress, because planetary fortresses just don't die against Lings alone, and that is such a safety anchor for these bio units to run back to. Dark is starting to breach the natural a little, but the Liberators are still there, and that honestly was a lot more expensive for Dark than it was for Clem.
Absolutely. Dark not able to replace the units particularly fast, although his mineral bank is fine. He's still not maxing out on pure Ling with so few larvae. That is currently his problem. Not that 100 Lings might add enough here. Clem very comfortable at 170 supply. Dark knows it. Clem will grab game number 3 and take the lead once more.
Clem wins on Golden Aura after not necessarily the best start that he's had in any of these 3 games so far, but managed to slow things down in the mid-game and kind of felt that Dark had opportunities for himself, taking control of the bottom left and top right at the same time. But that's only really valuable if you actually saturate it, if you actually start stealing some of these resources away. Even if eventually you end up losing your drones there, you end up losing the hatchery, that's not that big of a deal if you already took out some of the resources. But Clem does not care if Dark has a hatchery there for 15 minutes, as long as those minerals are still there to be mined later by the Frenchman.
Yeah, I feel like there's a momentary heart attack as you maybe look at the minimap and think, oh my gosh, how many minerals are missing? And you look and it's just an annoyance that you have to kill. And then it's like, oh, that's totally fine. I'll get around to that a little bit later. And Clem did. Clem chose the right moment to start spreading himself out to that top right base. That is where it gets the scariest for the Terran. And Dark did try and abuse that exact problem. It just was never good enough again. It got close. There was a couple more moments where maybe if those fungals did land or the Lings did get us around or Clem was a little more away from the defense, that Dark would have gotten better trades, Lings into the main, so on and so forth, but it did not happen. And I think Dark actually saw the writing on the wall probably after the 4th or 5th time that he entered into that natural and wasn't able to do the damage.
No, also kind of sad that we only really had one Nidus attempt. Like the main base of Clem was actually kind of wide open, had a single missile turret there, but often didn't leave any units behind. I kind of would have liked to see Dark just try a little bit more. And I know it's very difficult as a Zerg to get vision in that main base, but in the end, Dark just kind of kept trying the same thing over and over again, and it obviously looked promising from time to time, but I don't think Clem was ever like on wobbly legs or anything. Like Clem was always there and always a planetary to run back to, and it's like, well, one base at a time, this is going totally fine. And in the end, it went fine for the Clemperor.
And now we move into hard lead. In the bottom right, now down a game, he is the red Zerg for DKZ, Dark.
And in the top left side of hard lead, we are looking at the main base of the man who's now 2 maps away of realizing that lifelong dream of lifting a trophy in front of a passionate StarCraft 2 audience. This is Team Liquid's Clem.
Earlier this year, we had Solar finally able to lift the GSL trophy after so long. That was the narrative we chose when Clem versus Solar happened. I wondered if Clem would actually be the one to take him down, to absorb that power and finally get his trophy lift. And it is seeming more likely than ever as he leads the series and looks ultra confident in this matchup.
Yep, and this is also a map where I feel Clem shines. Even in some of the series over the last few months that he's been losing against Serral, hard lead often went his way. Hard lead went his way early today as well. We also saw different Terran players find some success on this map. Olivera, for instance, yesterday against Serral too. This is kind of a must-win at this point for Dark, because Lou falling down 1-3 in this best of 7 against that French kid that has all the momentum in the world. That's just honestly playing a fantastic tournament. Also in the beginning of the tourney already, we saw him on Friday in that winner's stage, getting the best of some Korean Terrans in TVT. That's something that definitely wasn't always the case in the past, but Clem has once more leveled up. It's been a long time coming. He's close, but he knows that he's not there yet. As Dark, obviously, with all that experience, probably not ultra concerned yet, but will know that he needs to either step it up or just do something different, a bit wilder, a bit crazier, whatever it is, because he cannot continue on the current trajectory. Game 1 and Game 2 just bad starts. Game 3 an alright start, but then just never even getting close to killing Clem. Dark will know that he needs to switch it up.
Yeah, which he has a lot of options to do so. I mean, he's not going to be throwing any of these proxy hatches that he might in some other tournaments, but again, some of the more fearsome roach pushes in the mid-game, or perhaps even trying to really push the pedal to the metal as far as that Ling count and catch Clem. Not expecting a bigger Ling run by, as the Reaper does barely survive. I wasn't even sweating it, that's why I wasn't talking about.
Clem Reapers never die, unless Ling speed is on or Clem has just had enough of it. But reminds me of one of the interviews we did once with Clem, and I believe in IEM Katowice, where the ESL crew did a great job in sitting the players down and answering funny questions. But like, Clem, if you could be any unit in StarCraft 2, which one would you like to be? And a lot of them went for something cool that flies or something that's invisible, and Clem is like, the Reaper. It's really annoying. And I think that really shows as well how much fun he has with the Reaper in the early game. Not just in this matchup, by the way. Clem is capable of being just as annoying against Protoss players as well.
Yeah, he is. And it's happening right now. Another drone gets popped up there, and the Reaper will live. Speed is done, and we do have Lings on the field, so the Reaper can't be too aggressive, but those Lings are currently on Clem's side of the map. They are maybe looking to enter in the natural when they see those Hellions leave. The Overlord is their posture to see exactly that. So yep, that's what he was waiting for. And a couple of SCVs might just go down. Actually didn't focus fire the SCVs, making sure primarily to get the Ling on the high ground to get the scout.
Yep, Dark just wanted the scout there. He's close to getting a single SCV, but in the end feels that it's more important to keep these Lings alive. It's actually funny now, this is the first time in these 4 games that I feel we have a few random Lings early on trying to go for a tiny bit of a run by, which is something we saw a lot in our other TVCs. There's like groups of 6 Lings, 8 Lings, 10 Lings running into the natural. We haven't really seen that a whole lot yet in this Grand Finals.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Clem's tech lab on his starport was scouted, but we can see that he's not actually using it for the starport production. So that's what Dark was able to see, just barely. He might presume that to have either, Cloak started up in Banshees or even a Raven, which Clem doesn't usually add, but can be a thing. Nope, and it's not going to be used at all. So I don't know if Dark's going to overreact to that, and by overreact, I mean get a couple of Spore Crawlers that he ultimately doesn't need for Banshees, but are still useful against Liberator harassment.
Yeah, especially against Clem's Liberators, because Clem is not the kind of guy to just siege his Liberator up and then don't look at it anymore and give up. Clem is going to siege and unsiege it over and over again. I've heard a certain Italian Zerg complain about it a couple of times, that it's literally the most annoying thing in the world. So having a Spore or two, even if it's not for the Banshee, to help out against the Liberators, not that bad for Dark.
This is the map where Dark brought out the 1-1 Rochalin versus Cure, I'm pretty sure. But more importantly than the map, it's the situation. It sounded like Dark was just going to kind of frustrated with how things were going. He was afraid he was losing a little bit of momentum. And he decided, I'm just going to go ahead and go for the kill. And that worked especially well because Cure wasn't expecting it, but it also is a way to gain the power in the mid-game. No doubt the Terran has to respect you if you are doing the 1-1 Rochalin. I am bringing it up because Dark is a little bit on the back foot. He just lost that last game, down a game and all that. And he is adding on a Roachhorn, so it's always that threat.
Yeah, but double Evo Chamber going down as well on the side of Dark, as Dark has taken that center hatchery and is temporarily preventing this command center from landing. But in the end, since Clem only lost 2 Hellions so far, that is obviously not going to take very long. Makes me wonder, does Clem have some Evo intentions with these Hellions, or are we just going to keep them alive for as long as possible, push back the creep to miss a little bit? Because he may be looking back at Hecate and be like, man, if I would have just survived with those Hellions, if those Hellions would have been at home and those Banelings wouldn't have blown up 15 SCVs, maybe I would have been up 3-0 by now.
Yeah.
And Clem might feel that he doesn't actually need to take crazy risk with the Hellions, as long as he just keeps good control, as Dark is firing up a lot of roaches, and the Spore is going to move, but the Liberator is going to move, and then the Spore is going to move, and the Liberator is going to move, but it seems that Clem is actually getting the best of that little dance, as Dark was focused on the Hellions there for a split second.
Exactly. It's the Liberator move and the Hellions move, and the Liberator moves and the Hellions move, and the Zerg is the one that's reacting to it. Not exactly sure where everything's coming in, but Creepshot actually is pretty decent, so he does have a heads up against the Hellions. The Roaches are obviously out helping too. Now Clem, he saw the Roaches. That was his reveal, I believe. Now he does really need to worry about that 1-1 Rochalin, because this time around, that is exactly what Dark is going for, looking to take advantage, perhaps a bit of a shorter push point, hoping to find Clem building Widow Mines and not tanks, and hoping this gives him control over the game. But Clem is building tanks. He is wary of this possibility.
Yep, Clem has 3 tanks already. He's currently working on tank number 4. That doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, because Dark is still going to show up with an insane amount of roaches. Just made 9 Overlords, so he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. He is going to build roaches until he's maxed out. What Clem needs to do right now is properly space out the tank. And you can always get a bunker or two, try to get a good heads up, but it's feeling that Clem already knows that this is happening. Everywhere Clem looks, with the Viking, with the scans, all he sees are roaches. I think he knows exactly what's coming, Zombie Grub.
Double scan from him really is the cherry on top. I think he was already pretty sure of it, but he just wanted to make absolutely sure, and those would certainly do it. No infestation pit, not a tremendous amount of drones, and more roaches being produced from the larva. 1-1 is done for Dark. He's breaking down the rocks to give him the fastest push point from his reinforcements to Clem's 3rd base. But this is one hell of a prepared Terran. He's been building tanks from the get-go. He knows what he's up against. He's even got that bunker to help out. Hellbat's helping with the defense as well. Roaches come in with the biggest concave they can get, but that's a lot of tanks to take down. A lot of Marines piercing through the roaches, looking for the Ravagers, but Dark is going to push through nonetheless, trying to actually make this work. Another tank barely being repaired to the mineral line. There's so many corrosive biles, and Clem is going to stem forward to chase down the remnants of Dark's army.
That looked promising for Dark there for a split second, but Clem with a clutch repair, and that one tank in the middle line, and don't forget he had that safety tank on the high ground as well. So the closer that Dark was coming to all those tanks, the more tanks started participating in the fight. I don't think Clem quite expected that many roaches and Ravages to come in from the right side, but I love how quickly he pulled back all these bio units. And Dark, even though he's still up in supply, is in serious trouble here, because Clem did build a 4th base during all of that. Clem did fire up +2 attack and +2 armor for his units. And what can Dark really do? Like more of the same Lair Tech Zerg? I mean, he got the best of Classic with Lair Tech Zerg, but that's a different matchup, Zombie Grub.
Very much is. Usually this would be the point in which the Zerg tries to transition out of pure Roach Ravager. They add on the Baneling Nest, they add on the Infestation Pit, and Dark, more than anyone else, has practiced with that, I do believe, and I have always said that he's one of the best in those positions. but it's not happening so far. He is just getting remaxed again, perhaps fearing the possibility of a counterattack, or I think more likely he wants to keep up the pressure. He wants to make it so Clem doesn't feel comfortable doing well, maybe something exactly like this. Double medevac drops into the main base, finding Dark a little underdefended. Lings have responded, but unfortunately that might not be enough. The Lair is the target that Transfuse is trying to come through, but it's not going to be good enough as Clem snipes the main base.
Lair tech Zerg becomes Hatchery tech Zerg, and that just means things go from bad to worse for Dark. Dark knows that he's in all sorts of trouble, but he still has an army, and you always want to try. We've got +2 missile attacks and +2 carapace kicking in the near future, but that is going to be it. Dark is not going to stay in that game a whole lot longer. Dark will look at this and say, all right, I'm maxed out, I'm going to try for it one more time. It's now or never.
It's now or never to actually bring back the series to an even point, but it's looking like it's not going to be this game. Dark is going to fall even further behind. If he cannot beat Clem's third base, then he cannot. Clem even pushing him back in the process. And Dark probably scratching his head, wondering what the heck else he can do. Clem is no longer at a point where he can be surprised by a secondary or tertiary all-in. He has the army, he has the upgrades, he has the tank count, and he has the knowledge.
And he has sniped the Lair, so he knows there is nothing really to worry about. Dark is going to try one more time. A popular saying in StarCraft is, look at these supplies, and that will think that this game is close, but Clem knows that it really shouldn't be all that close. Dark knows it's not all that close, but he's still going to try. Roaches, Ravages, +2 attacks, he can get 1 tank, he can get 2 tanks, but unless Clem massively fumbles, this should never go Dark's way.
No, it will not. Dark down to, well, quite a few Ravagers. That is an impressive number, 18 of them. That's a lot of Corrosive Biles, but it's also a very soft army composition. That is going to be jumped on by Marauders and taken down if it does not have the Roach buffer, which it no longer does. Dark is attempting to at least continue on with the game, but I don't believe he still has remade the Lair, so I actually don't. I feel like he's also kind of like, well, maybe yes, maybe no, but I also forgot that I don't have a Lair. So the hatchery's on the way. He's looking to move his drones over, but he really has no second plan here. It's just attack, attack, attack.
Yep, he is going to continue attacking, and at least until the +3 upgrades kick in for Clem. Maybe the Ravagers can shine. Ravagers really are pretty damn good against Bio. It's something that can only work for so long. Clem's army is going to get bigger, better, stronger. Dark knows that unless Clem once more massively makes a big micro error, absorbs a lot of Corrosive Biles, this current army of Dark is not going to be good enough. So he does restart that Lair. He's going to build more Roaches. We've got +1 melee on the way now as well. It's just, it feels like an unfair fight. You're looking at it, you're like, well, both players are maxed out. But Clem is heading to his dream destination, and Dark is heading in the opposite way of where he would like to go.
+1 melee is really all he could get. You know, there's not many other options without that Lair being done. He could also be at least adding on the Baneling Nest to time it out for some difficult hooks, but he isn't. He is once again, however, going for that third base. The tanks were left a little bit alone, so many of them are falling. Dark hoping that this could be the maneuver to net him a victory, as there's not enough reinforcements from Clem to stop the Ravagers from entering into the natural. But Clem, the reason he doesn't have an army back at home is because he's also in his opponent's natural. It's a good old base trade as Clem is forced to live up to his main, where yet another tank lies to defend against the Ravagers.
Yep, that's that early game tank that was able to get a lot of shots off. It is now going to be dropped to the low ground. I mean, kudos to Dark for making something happen here, but he's obviously taking a severe beating on his own side of the map. And these Ravagers, in the end, will get cleaned up. And he's +3 Marauders right now. A couple of Ghosts in the mix too, and it's Clem who takes the 3-1 lead in the grand finals of the ESL Winter Championship, and is 1 map away of doing what we all knew he was capable of. It was never a question of if, it was a question of when Zombie grew up, and it's starting to look like today is that day that Clem can finally get the job done at a big offline event.
That's 100% correct. Oceanborn could be our final battleground. If Clem is able to take this one, that'll be it. He'll stand in front of the audience and lift that trophy. He is looking so darn good in this matchup. He had the macro game. He's got the micro. He tripped up maybe a little in the second game, and that's all right. But for this game that we just witnessed, we also saw that brain at work. He was wary of the potential of a 1-1 Roach all in. He knew that Dark brought that out against Cure. He knew that could be brought at any moment. moment, and he was so freaking prepared for it.
Yep, and that's that experience that we were talking about for Clem as well. Sure, Dark has a ton of experience and way more seasoned than Clem is, but Clem has obviously been taking notes of some of those big events that he went to over the last 18 months. He knows that he has the skills to hang in there, to make finals. If it doesn't go your way, you go back to the drawing board and you're like, all right, where does it go wrong? Which mistakes have I made? And I think Clem is just really in the zone. It's not just that his micro is good. He is thinking about every single thing that happens in the game. He double checks, he triple checks, and yeah, he couldn't really be much more prepared than what he was. And he was actually playing with so much confidence too, because you could have said, Clem, you don't really need an extra command center there. You could drop another bunker. You can maybe space it out a bit more, but it felt Clem had a sole read on the situation. He said, no, I know how this goes, and I will be fine. And got a little scary after he lost 3 tanks, but the clutch repair and that safety tank on the high ground were in the end good enough to keep all the SCVs safe, the 3 bases safe, and obviously put him in pole position to bring the game home.
Obviously, there was a lot of action with the Ravagers pushed into the 3rd base. Thank you, audience, by the way.
Yeah, thank you, Atlanta.
But, you know, that tank repair. Yeah, that's right, Crouch here, yeah. Dark's actually taking a bit of a moment here, guys, by the way. But that tank repair was actually so cool. It was off in the very corner of the camera, but that also tremendously helping out Clem. I think he's just being told that his opponent's taking a break. And Dark needing a break, well, that's obviously is right, and he does that all the time, but also wondering if he is hoping somehow in the 3 minutes he can figure out a way to bring his game up to snuff, or he can figure out what the heck to do against Clem to get Clem feeling a little less confident. Yep.
Clem obviously brings a lot of different problems to the Zerg table if you approach it from the Zerg point of view, where there are certain things you can get away with on some maps, but not on all. And the next one is going to be Oceanborn, and that kind of strikes me as a map where Clem in general is not going to be in all that much of a hurry. There are plenty of bases to take, and we really see that he has been playing a serious amount of SimCity lately. I don't know if they've got any esports tournaments on Big Rob, but the SimCity community has to be worried because Clem might start entering their tourneys as well, because he has PFs and orbitals and sensor towers and missile turrets in all the right places. And no matter how scary those Zerg armies look, it's like there is no good engagement. It's not in the top right, not in the center, not in the bottom left. It just feels that every single engagement a Zerg can take at a certain moment becomes hell against this kid.
If there's an Excel tournament that happens, I can guarantee you there's a SimCity tournament. And it would be won by Clem. Absolutely. Now we are finally ready to go for what, again, could be the last map of this grand finals, as this man is down on his last life. Clem here is now feeling as confident as ever. Just one more victory, and he will raise the trophy in front of our best crowd yet. Thank you so much, guys, for being here late into the night. Let's get the cheers going as we enter into Oceanborn.
Oceanborn it is for Game 5 of this Grand Finals of this absolutely amazing tournament. It started off with 48 hungry, eager and hopeful nerds. In the end, it comes down to these two. In the bottom right side, we are looking at the main base of one of the best Zergs to ever do it. This is Dragon Kaizi Gaming's Dark.
In the top left in his first Premier Finals, and now one game away from lifting that Premier trophy, he is the Blue Terran for Team Liquid, Clem!
What a weekend it has been for Claymore. Obviously started his journey on the Friday morning with a 2-1 victory over Classic. Wasn't totally smooth sailing, but in the end brought it home. Then he had to play TVT, and that's often where Clem struggled. I mean, I'm sure you've had the question plenty of times as well on your streams or the other adventures. Why doesn't Clem win big international tournaments? Well, in the past, it was often TVT that held him back. There are some great Terran players in Europe, but it's not the same as we have over in Asia, where where you've got Cure, Beyond, Bonnie, Oliveira, and many more guys like Gumio pushing their TVT to a whole nother level. And it's just difficult for someone like Clem to get up to that level. But it seems as time went by, and I don't know, maybe he studied more, maybe it's a bit of the meta change as well with the Neil patch, that Clem's TVT got to that level. And that is also what perhaps allowed him to advance straight into the quarterfinals after winning a TVT against the Gumi God on Friday afternoon. And here we are. A couple quarterfinals later, a semi-finals later, Clem taking the 3-1 lead in the grand final.
Pushing every offline tournament a little bit further, proving every critique wrong as well, as Clem did manage to take down the greatest Korean TVTer in Maru at the last tournament in Riyadh. Now he is looking to take down one of the greatest Zergs to ever play the game, one of the oldest players as well, with so much experience, starting his career back in, I believe, 2012 on the Slayers team as one of their sniper Zergs. Now we have a little dance going on as we expect. The SCV runs away from the drone. Now the drone wants to run away from the Reaper, but at the end of the day, the ring around the Rosie will be won by the Terran.
Yep, that's big. And if you guys are somewhat new to StarCraft, you're not exactly sure, you can only morph your drone into an extractor if there is nothing blocking that from happening. So Clem is basically putting his SCV very close to it. You can press hold position on it as well. Dark knows that, so he's trying to kill the SCV there. Clem does a great job in keeping it alive and also preventing the drone from morphing into an extractor. It seems that a single Marine did get picked off there in the center, as one low HP SCV is going to fall on Clem's side of the map. Second SCV getting stuck. Clem may be feeling some of those jitters right now.
Pretty sure he thought the ring around the Rosie game was gone, but now it's turning the tag, and he has lost the game here. 2 SCVs and a little bother, scout as well from the Ling on the high ground, which I think is pretty complete even, as the Clem's really been shy about showing his build. Okay, not quite complete, doesn't see the third CC, but you can also somewhat tell from the lack of supply depots at the front. Oh, hey, well, there you go. Now you know everything.
I was like, I'm going to do the same thing that I've been very good with. Deal with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Dog's like, oh.
Probably still like, oh, I was really hoping you were 2-base all-in.
Yeah. Come on, Clem, those 2-base all-ins are really good against me, man. I promise you should give it a shot.
Exactly.
I was like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Clem with his first 2 Hellions on the other side of the map, as once more he has opted to go for the Liberator first. So we're going to get that bombo combo of Hellions and Liberators, and we can't forget about that opportunity that presented itself on Hecate, where a Liberator sieged up and that forced Dark to pull the drones away. And once you pull those drones away to an unprotected area, that's where those Hellions of Clem can show up. And obviously 3 Hellions, 1-shotting drones is all it takes for a game to go from alright to a straight up nightmare for the Zerg immediately. But obviously Dark should be aware of it, he should keep track of these Hellions, and hopefully will not take too much economic damage here in the early stages of Oceanborn.
No, not so much. Just losing a creep tumor, which is still very annoying. The Hellion's going to pair up now with that Liberator harassment, which Dark's been pretty good about defending against, if not, I mean, yeah, basically good to great is what we've been seeing here. Lair coming down for Dark. A couple of gas is being added on rather quickly. Clem with the harassment is also going to be on the lookout for the scouts, of course. Third hatchery, not usually where you see a lot of the technology, but hoping to find a little bit of an unexpected Liberator siege up. Doesn't find any drones.
Yep, so far so good for Dark, but Dark obviously knows that the worst is yet to come, as Tim is now 60% done as well. Dark again dropping a Baneling nest here, somewhat early. I'm actually surprised by the amount of Ling Bane we've seen in this matchup, in this tournament, because once this patch went through, I was like, the Baneling's dead, completely useless. You're never going to connect with a single Marine again. It's like, okay, we know it's not going to be that bad, but I feel like we've just seen a lot of Banelings in this matchup over the last few days. Sometimes successful, often not that successful against Clem.
6 Overlords at once coming out for Dark. I mean, I guess he's not doing, he might as well, I suppose. Big old bust out of the supply, as he is just building drones. Usually you would see that maybe preempting the Roach max out, but this is the game where we don't actually have a Roach Warren. Liberator will find a Queen and a couple of drones after, as that Spore is still not done. And that's exactly what Clem grabs. He's comfortably moving over onto his third base. He's got his 1-1 upgrades on the way. He is building tanks first. He's not going to play it loosey-goosey with Widow Mines first against Dark, even though in this particular game, it would have been fun. It would have helped his first push as well. Yep,
and that's obviously how Clem loves to play. Ideally, he never builds a tank, but we saw in that previous game on Hecate, yeah, there are many scenarios where you just need tanks, and often more than one. So Dark is going to be able to get up to 71 drones rather quickly as the grenade is going to bounce the queen off creep, but there are different queens showing up from the right side that will drop not one but a double transfuse as Dark is going to show up here at the third. The tank on the high ground is nice enough, but it's going to deal a lot of friendly fire to the STVs. So this tiny Link counterattack gets 8 STVs. I don't hate that for Dark at all, as long as he doesn't take any damage on his side of the map.
And that is the question. Hellions are out, but more importantly, we got Marines on that left side looking to enter into the fourth base. The Liberator also does get sieged up. Hellions still being controlled, but yes, this is really what we want to look at. The medevacs aren't here. The medevac turned around to deal with the Ling run by, but it looks like these units are safe enough to be aggressive, and now the reinforcements have come. The tank anchoring as well, looking to shoot down these still slow banelings, but there we go. Centrifugal hooks is done, and now the Marines have got to get out of there.
Yep, the Lings and banelings will surround that tank. The Marines are very low on HP. Combat shield is about to kick in, and the second medevac showing up as well is going to give a bit of extra healing power. Dark still needs to be careful because Clem is paying attention. He is capable of cutting down 6 or 7 banelings, even off creep with baneling speed. He is going to be fine there. A very quick hive on the side of Dark, and also quick burrow. And you know, Zombie Grub, that I love me some burrowed banelings in this matchup.
If you say you don't love burrowed banelings,
you're a hater.
Well, you're probably the Terran that just lost to him. So.
Or right.
Yeah, that's the only reason. That's the only time. Otherwise, we love to see it, and certainly if you are cheering for Dark to make the comeback, then you got to be cheering for some juicy baneling hits, whether they're just straight up or on the burrow. Now, Dark does get some nice hits to send those medevacs away with the Marines. But Burrow on the way, Hive on the way. Could have those fast ultras coming in too. Clem, he's also macroing up totally fine, totally great. 2-2, a little bit late though, if we're going to be critical. His armory was not done at the time it should be.
Because he actually had 1-1 slightly quicker than Dark. And we can see on the production tab that Dark and Suit upgrades are already on the way. Clem is going to fire up Drilling Claws. 8 minutes and 35 seconds into this game. This Hive is about to finish up. And obviously if Dark can just get a couple of very quick ultras, these Marines are going to be a lot less successful. Clem was a little timid in the last 30 seconds of taking some of these fights. That I feel that if Clem is very confident, if he's vibing, he stands there and he guns down every single bailing. Kind of feels like he's a little bit off his rhythm, or Dark is just always one step ahead.
Yeah, either one, but Clem is still trying to get some aggression going while ultimately building up the macro game. With Clem being pushed away a little bit, we do have those burrowed banelings being set up on the ramp, the choke points. Now Clem, once he gets burrowed baneling bombed once, he will be scanning ahead, but it's about that first one. How juicy are these going to be? Or he just scans there. All right then.
Will he now scan in the bottom left side as well? If he does, nope, he does not scan in the bottom left. So Dark does get a couple of connections there. I mean, that could have gone a lot worse for Clem. But as you said, this is obviously a big moment for Clem, because from here on out, you know that you gotta be careful everywhere you go. On creep or off creep, it doesn't matter. There is danger around the corner. Dark is doing all of this, by the way, of 78 drones. Like, that's not bad, but it's also not that crazy overwhelming Zerg economy that we are used to. That kind of means that if Dark does not completely smash fights, he's going to be in trouble immediately, because this is kind of the way that high-level ZVT works.
Well, Liberator sieging up the 9, more mining as Dark comes in here with his Lings, trying to get those baneling connections. Whoa. Tanks aplenty though as we pull back, and Clem is going to keep this position. Dark's gonna need to regroup. He's coming in once again without the Vipers, without the Ultras. They're coming in a bit late, but he will take out the tanks, and if he's got some banelings, he'll take out the Marines as well. But that is the question. Here we go, 4 banelings sniped down, because of course they would be. Clem with the Marines still going strong. Will eventually pack up, or will he? 2 more banelings get sniped before he finally decides he's got to get out of there. But now we see Clem in action. He is on both sides of the map trying to find that damage, and Dark's only relief will probably be with these Ultras. The Marines got to respect that.
But he's broke as a joke, and this is where those 77 drones are really going to hurt Dark. The 2-2 upgrades are going to kick in for Clem as well, as Clem has really kicked it into overdrive here on Oceanborn. He is sniping every single bailing that is in his sight, and Dark is on the ropes. He's in serious trouble, Zombie Grub. Just not that rich, not that much creep to work with. A couple of ultras is nice enough, but he needs more than a few ultras. Has lost over 200 Zerglings in the last 2 minutes of this game alone, and he's not done yet, as Clem is just not stopping.
Yeah, the Lings do catch a lot of reinforcements on the left side, and the parasitic bomb does interfere with the medevacs, but still, Dark is in a tough spot. He's got to carry this momentum onto the other side of the map, which is exactly what he's trying to do. Lings on top of some of the reinforcements, Ultras coming in as well. Whatever whatever he's got, it's thrown across, hoping to find Clem in a position where he cannot defend his production line yet again, but it's not going to happen. At the very least, Clem will protect his main base, although his third will have to be evacuated. Ult just chopping down on more reinforcements as Dark is just pretty much all in over here, right? He is throwing everything he's got, all the reinforcements, into actually breaking Clem.
The problem is there are Liberators and Ultras and Lings, no matter how cool of a units they are, they do not shoot up, and that was just not good enough for Dark in the end. Does get 16 SCVs, but you could see how chaotic that was. We had 7 drones or so showing up of Dark there into the natural of Clem. Obviously not what Dark was looking for. Do we have any tricks left, Dark? Do we have any burrowed Bailings? No, we have 0 Bailings on the map at the moment. So making 6 more, but he needs a little more than just 6. 4 Ultras, 2 Vipers. That's basically what needs to get the job done here for Dark. Dark knows it, he's in all sorts of trouble, does not want to lose the base, does end up losing the base, still runs up this ramp, but Clem is here with a lot of army, and Clem wouldn't be Clem if we're also arresting different bases.
Yeah, he's harassing the base, he's pulling back his army, he's splitting his medevacs, and the Liberators just going to town as the Queens weren't even on attack command, apparently. Dark knew that that was his one moment when Clem had to retreat. Dark was going to try and push it to a victory, but without winning on Clem's side of the map, it's going to be Dark who has to tap out. Clem with the 4-1 victory is going to win his first Premier Championship at the ESL Masters Winter.
It's been a long time coming for Clem. 5 years ago, he was finally eligible to join the ESL Pro Tour, play at some of these big tournaments, and we saw rather quickly that he was going to be a serious contender. He got close so many times. Today, his dream comes true. Your champion is Team Liquid's Clem.
Clem, your first win at an offline major for so long. This has felt inevitable. Today it has happened. Tell me, what does it mean to achieve this?
That means so much. Winning my first offline tournament in front of this crowd, you guys are amazing, and that feels amazing.
This crowd has stayed extra long. Strikedown is happening around us, but they had to be here to watch this incredible and historic moment. You took out Cyril, the top Zerg as voted by so many of your peers. You took out Dark, who has been in so many finals. How have you done this?
I wasn't feeling too confident in my TVZ before this tournament, but now I definitely feel a bit better about it. I mean, I've been practicing for this so much, and the past few months I was at home practicing so much, and it feels really nice. Yeah, pretty much seeing it pay off on a stage like this. Yeah, I'm very happy.
Well, you talked about what it means to win in front of an incredible, dedicated crowd like this that is so happy to watch this achievement. But there's so many more fans that have cheered you on at all of these tournaments, who have cheered you on online, from home, from everywhere. So what do you want to say to everyone who's supported you to this moment?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you here in Atlanta. Thank you to everyone watching at home. Yeah, thank you to the French viewer. Merci beaucoup les gars, vous êtes géniaux. Merci, merci.
From Team Liquid, your French Terran, Clem, claim your trophy for the ESL StarCraft 2 Masters, Winter 2023.